In a previous documentary about The Chosen, we showed you a pretty startling clip where Jonathan Roumie openly admits to being a Knights Templar. If you haven't seen it yet, take a look.
I'm wearing a mantle and a cross with a little crown on it, a knight's cross. 5 years ago, I was knighted by the order, the Sovereign Military Order of the Temple of Jerusalem. I lost my mind there for a second. Essentially the Knights Templar, which is what that is.
If you don't know who the Knights Templar is, look at the structure of Freemasonry. The Knights Templar is literally the top step. It is on par with a 33rd degree Freemason. In fact, you can't get any higher, well, at least any higher than they tell us you can get, than a 33rd degree Freemason or a Knights Templar. On his Instagram, which was dated in 2020, it says, "It was an epic inaugural event, and on behalf of my fellow Templar brothers and sisters, we are so grateful to have been a part of it." The guy who is stamping Jesus in everybody's mind is literally on par with a 33rd degree Freemason.
Now here's where things get even more concerning. Jonathan Roumie isn't just claiming to be a Knights Templar. That title alone puts him on the same level as a 33rd degree Freemason, as we mentioned in the other documentary, but it doesn't stop there. Look at how much he's using skull imagery. You've seen it, right? Like the rings he's wearing the clothing, he's got all of the symbols. So what does that all mean? Listen to this clip from Jonathan Roumie where he explains it himself.
Comes from a very deeply felt Catholic Christian tradition about mortality and the need to recognize our mortality and to cultivate a deeper sense of holiness in our lives today, because tomorrow is not guaranteed. That's in a nutshell what this is. Memento mori. Remember, you will die. We will all die. It's just a part of life.
On the surface level, this seems like a very honorable thing to do, right? Like, we should remember that we're going to die someday, and we should remember to live our lives to the glory of God every day, because someday might be our last day. But in this memento mori tradition, Jonathan Roumie is not alone. There's other Catholics like Father Mike Schmitz, Sister Teresa Alatea Noble, Bishop Robert Barron, and others that all promote this thing of memento mori. So let's talk about Bishop Robert Barron. His Jesuit ties run deep. In this biography that Matthew Levering writes about him, he highlights Barron's admiration for Jesuit priest Pierre Teilhard de Chardin and Karl Rahner, whom Barron says to have been hugely influenced by. His ministry, Word and Fire, is also filled with a ton of content promoting Ignatius of Loyola and Ignatian spirituality, Ignatius of Loyola being the founder of the Jesuits. But memento mori isn't just Catholic. The Freemasons also claim it. Listen to this from the Oriental Lodge number 33 on their website.
One of the themes that Freemasonry emphasizes is memento mori, which means remember that you will die.
Isn't that the same thing that Jonathan Roumie said? So let's pause and connect the dots here. Catholics and Jesuits teach memento mori, Freemasons claim memento mori as theirs, and Jonathan Roumie, Catholic actor who admits to being a Knights Templar, is pushing it too. So why do the Jesuits, Freemasons, and Knights Templars all promote the same concept? Let's go straight to the writings of Albert Pike, a 33rd degree Freemason and Sovereign Grand Commander of the Scottish Rite's Southern Jurisdiction. I have right here in front of me this book, Morals and Dogma of Freemasonry. Basically, this is their religion. This is where they say this is what they believe. Now, in chapter 17, Pike writes,
"The Templars, or poor fellow soldiery of the Holy House of the Temple intended to be rebuilt, took as their models in the Bible the warrior masons of Zerubbabel, who worked holding the sword in one hand and the trowel in the other. Therefore, it was that the sword and the trowel were the insignia of the Templars, who subsequently concealed themselves under the name of Brethren Masons. The name Frères Maçons in the French was corrupted in English into Freemasons."
So Pike isn't just making an offhand remark here, he's drawing a direct connection between the Knights Templars and the origins of Freemasonry. And in chapter 30, he takes it even further, revealing what happened just before Jacques de Molay, the last Grand Master of the Templars, was executed.
The Templars were gravely accused of spitting upon Christ and denying God at their receptions, of gross obscenities, conversations with female devils, and the worship of a monstrous idol. The end of the drama is well known, and how Jacques de Molay and his fellows perished in the flames. But before his execution, the chief of the doomed order organized and instituted what afterward came to be called the occult, Hermetic or Scottish Masonry. In the gloom of his prison, the Grand Master created 4 metropolitan lodges, at Naples for the east, at Edinburgh for the west, at Stockholm for the north, and at Paris for the south. The initials of his name, JBM, found in the same order in the first 3 degrees, are but one of the many internal and cogent proofs that such was the origin of modern Freemasonry.
I've also got a Masonic Bible here. When you open it up, there is a diagram in it with the plan of the Order of Freemasonry. Right here, in the structure of Freemasonry, you can see the Knights Templar and their symbol. Now, history tells us that the Pope Clement V officially dissolved the Knights Templars of 1312. But the question is, did they truly vanish, or did they simply rebrand, morphing into Freemasonry, just as Pike, one of Freemasonry's highest authorities, admits?
The order disappeared at once. Its estates and wealth were confiscated, and it seemed to have ceased to exist. Nevertheless, it lived, under other names and governed by unknown chiefs, revealing itself only to those who, in passing through a series of degrees, had proven themselves worthy to be entrusted with the dangerous secret.
So Albert Pike, a 33rd degree Freemason, admits that the Templars eventually became the Freemasons. But who really controls the Freemasons? In the book Freemasons Magazine, A Masonic Mirror, Volume 4, this is from the 1800s, a Masonic publication, it says on page 399,
the brothers and fellows of the Freemasons are the scholastici and coadutores spirituales of the Jesuits. For the temporal or secular Jesuits are not yet members of the order. They are not to do their own proper will, for the order of the Jesuits requires absolute obedience, and the secular Jesuits do not yet know that Freemasonry is under the direction of the order. The secrets and secrecy of the Masons allude to the secrets of the Nostri or Notres. The Valley of Jehoshaphat, even, by its initial J, represents the Jesuits and symbolizes the whole surface of the globe, where the Masons are not to know that they are the slaves of the Jesuits. By the way, they certainly do not know it. The word mosaic, relating to pavement, we are told is written in italics to symbolize the artifice of Moses, who knew how to blind the people of Israel to make them his partisans. The blazing star is the sun, the emblem of the order, the symbol of omnipotence. The Master Mason represents the chief of the Notres, or Nostri, and refers to the general. The 4 principles, the 4 vows of the initiated Jesuits.
So what this Masonic publication is saying is that the Masons fall directly under the Jesuits, but that only on the absolute highest levels the Masons are aware of this. Now, in his famous Total Onslaught series, Dr. Walter Veith showed some pictures of him visiting a shrine. Pay attention to the similar symbology between the Masons and the Templars.
Now let's go a little bit into some of the history. I'm taking you to this beautiful palace. Where do you think it is? It's in Jerusalem, and it's Notre Dame Vatican. And this is where the Pope has his representation in Jerusalem. It's a palace for a king. There's the Vatican flag flying outside, and here is the Knights Palace, the Latin Patriarchate. This is where the Knights Templars originally had a site. If you go inside, there's this interesting altar. And as you look at the altar, you'll see certain figures over here. This one over here is very interesting. Let me get it a little bit closer. And what do you see? You see the double-headed eagle, which is also the symbol that is used in Freemasonry. So there it is on the altar of the Knights And what is there on this side? Two swords held like a compass. Fascinating. So there are many, many Masonic figures in here. The tail feathers and the feathers of the eagle, very reminiscent of what you have, for example, on the back of the dollar, and all those other interesting symbols of the circle with the triangle and the sun around it. And the inheritor of the Templar nuance are the Jesuits. Now the Jesuits, of course, are the ones who behind the scenes control many things.
Even Helena Blavatsky, a highly influential occultist and worshipper of Satan, connects the Jesuits to the Knights Templars.
So Blavatsky said that the modern versions of the Templars were actually inspired and influenced by the Jesuits to try to Christianize what the Templars actually believe, and of course especially those flavors that are connected with Freemasonry.
It's not just us making these connections. Let's take a look again at Walter Veit's Total Onslaught series as he shows you how the Knights Templars, Jesuits, and Freemasons are all basically the same thing.
Christianity and the secret societies, we could just summarize it as follows. The old Babylonian religion gave rise to Kabbalism. Via the Essenes and others, Gnosticism came into existence, and Gnosticism was founded by Simon Magus. This comes from no other source than History de la Magie and by Eliphas Levi. Wow, that's a high Masonic source. So Gnosticism, founded by Simon Magus. Then this Gnosticism, with its secret doctrine, was eventually, over time, through many intermediary organizations, carried over to the Knights Templars. And the Knights Templars were a group of a Roman Catholic order, if you like, that were set over the temple site to protect it. And they had strong links to Islamic societies, the Ismailis, the Karmatites, the Fatimites, the Druzes, and the Assassins. Now the Templars, they had their secret inner information inculcated in the Rosicrucians and the Jesuits. The Jesuits, again, formed and created Freemasonry. And Freemasonry was created as the Protestant arm of the Roman Catholic Church. Unbeknown to them, beguiled, fooled, if you like, into doing the work that Rome wanted them to do, so that Rome could sit in the background while Freemasonry did it for them. And then it wasn't them, it was them. And it was mainly Protestants that were doing it, and not Rome. Very clever. Very, very clever indeed.
So you can see how all this falls together, how Jonathan Roumie says he's a Knights Templar, but then he also is really flirting with the Freemason stuff. And then the Jesuits are like, well, this stuff that the Freemason says is theirs, it's like actually ours. But really, if you look at the evidence, it's all the same thing. It's all intertwined and connected. The Knights Templars even have the exact same cross in their emblem as the Freemasons, and they both have a crown and a sword. And in fact, the Freemasons and Jesuits and Knights Templars all have the same references to the sun in their emblems. Is that just coincidence? Let's add another level to this layer. In an interview, Jonathan Roumie reveals that his father attended a Jesuit school.
My father's from the Middle East, family is Greek Orthodox, and my mother's Roman Catholic from Ireland. And when we left New York City, we moved to the suburbs. There weren't a whole lot of Orthodox churches, and my dad, being a Christian in Egypt, went to Catholic school run by French Jesuits.
Now, does attending a Jesuit school automatically mean that you're a devout Jesuit and somehow you're part of a secret society? No, but when it comes to Jonathan Roumie, though, we've already seen some strong connections between him, the Knights Templars, and 33rd degree Freemasons and Jesuits. But as we continue, the evidence just keeps stacking up. Recently, Jonathan Roumie was knighted into yet another Catholic order, the Knights of Columbus. Now, on their official website, they state, just a few months before sharing his powerful pro-life message on the National Mall in Washington, D.C., Roumie became a member of the Knights of Columbus. So they even visited him on the set of The Chosen, where Roumie himself confirms that he is a member of this knighthood. Take a look at this clip.
I always wanted to be a Knight of Columbus. They're awesome fellas. I'm praying for them constantly and the mission and the people that they serve. My reaction as a knight is to be present with them. That's kind of how I feel like I can give back to the knights.
When you look at the official emblem of this order, you will see the fasces symbol. According to Britannica, the word fascism comes from the Latin fasces, which denotes a bundle of wooden rods that typically included a protruding axe blade. In ancient Rome, lictors, attendants to the magistrates, would hold the fasces as a symbol of the penal power of the magistrate. So this is how Britannica describes fascism.
To unify a country, fascist movements propagated extreme nationalism that often went hand in hand with militarism and racial purity. The prosperity of a nation depended on a unified polity that put the group's welfare above the individual's. A strong, vigilant military was considered necessary to defend these group interests.
Now, think about Christian history. During the Dark Ages, the Roman Catholic Church acted pretty much the exact same way. Protestants, people who dare to follow their own conscience and they challenged what they believed were unbiblical teachings, they were hunted down, they were tortured, they were killed by the millions. And the goal of this persecution was to bring everybody under the unity of Rome again. Absolute control with the Pope at its head, no room to have your own understanding of scripture or your own conscience between you and your God, your own beliefs, according to what you believe scripture says is true. It even used military orders like the Knights of Malta, the Knights Templars, and the Jesuits to enforce this kind of control. If you look at Pope Pius IX, he once said,
"The absurd and erroneous doctrines in defense of liberty of conscience are a most pestilential error, a pest to be most dreaded in a state."
That doesn't sound like freedom of religion. That sounds like fascism.
For today, Rome considers the fascist regime the nearest to its dogmas and interest. We have not merely the Reverend Jesuit Father Coughlin praising Mussolini's Italy as a Christian democracy, but Civiltà Cattolica, which is an official mouthpiece of the Jesuits, says, fascism is the regime that corresponds most closely to the concept of the Church of Rome.
So let me ask you this question. Is it really coincidence that the Knights of Columbus use a fascist symbol if this is in fact part of the Church's history, and if this is in fact, according to the Jesuits, this closely aligned to the Catholic Church's beliefs? And Jonathan Roumie became a lifetime Knight of Columbus.
If you like this video, like,
subscribe,
and hit the notification bell so you know when we launch new videos.
And drop a comment below, and we'll try to get back to you if we can.
What? Say that again.
Oh.
No, I don't know what to say.